Okay, this program will be in two parts. First will be me telling you about Ancestry and the databases that are available to you, and the second part will be actually practicing using Ancestry. I wanted to begin by giving you some statistics that are within the last month. Ancestry, as of actually this month, has the following. They have 65 billion records from 88 countries. There are 1.1 billion photos, stories, and documents from personal collections. There are 143 million family trees, and 27 million have taken the Ancestry DNA test. The first thing you need to know about what is there is that there are just a couple of differences between Ancestry Library Edition and the Personal Edition. The Library Edition is able to be accessed for free, but you have to be in the library building. The Personal version is a paid version. You have to pay so much a month. In the US, that's $26 for just the US version. If you wanted a world monthly version, it's $40. Or if you wanted the all access family plan, which allows multiple people to use the same login, it's $60. The differences are very much in just looks. When you first log into the Library Edition, this is what you will see. When you log into a Personal Edition, this is what you'll see. However, you have access to the same exact thing. The difference with the Personal Edition is that you are able to store your own family tree. With the Library Edition, you are not. Also, with both versions, but mostly the Personal version, they're continually updating the tools that you can use to modify and access data. I'm going to go back to the Ancestry Library Edition, and that's the main one I'm going to focus on. If you come here to the top, you'll see the button that says Search. You go there, you can have all collections, census, voter lists, birth, marriage and death, military, immigration and travel, and card catalog. The easiest thing to do is go to all collections, and from there you can break down what you're going to search for. The top section up here is your basic search. If you click on Show More Options, it allows you to fill in more information to narrow your search. If you do first name, last name, sometimes less information you put in, the better. You get more information, but sometimes you get too much information, so you want to put in a little bit more information. I will start in with Zenith. And with women, you always want to use their maiden name. I can't spell. And I know Zenith was born in 1843. And she died in 1897. And then I'm going to hit search. And you'll see here there's several different Zenith Helpman records. If you hover over the blue part, it will show you that her spouse was H.M. Keel, which I know is correct. and that she had a child named Earl Clifton Keel, which I know is correct. So I know that record is something that I would want to look at. So to view that record, I just click on that. And it shows you the information that's available there. Over here on the right, it also shows you some more records that might pertain to Zenith. And you can look at those individually too. So go back. And as you scroll down the original search, you see more birth records. There's Eddie Keel, her daughter. William Keel, her son. Etta again. Then there's census records and marriage records. Anytime you see this little icon here that says view, that means there's actually an image that you can click on and see the record. And here you see she's listed under the household of her father and her mother and all of her siblings. Let's search one more person here under the general search. And I'm going to tell it a new search, all collections. More options. Wrong one. We'll do Benjamin Simmons. He was born 1892. And he died in 1966. And as you see under Benjamin, we have a little bit more current information. We have a death certificate, and there's a document there to view. You see he's listed in Find a Grave. And he was alive during the Social Security, so he has the Social Security information. And then you see census records. You also see this England and Wales, but I happen to know that's not the same Benjamin, because Benjamin I know was only alive in Indiana, so I could pretty well say those are definitely not him. And this one here in Tennessee, 99.9% sure that's not him. And a lot of times you just have to go into the record and see who else is associated with this person. Is this really who I was looking for? So Bloomfield, Johnson County, Illinois, no, that's not him. But these, Columbia City, Fort Wayne, Collimer, that's definitely the same Benjamin. But if I go to his death certificate, you'll see here it has a brief summary of what's on the certificate, who his father was. And if you go into the actual certificate, you'll get a little bit more information. You can see he was living in Indiana, Whitley County, Fort Wayne, and Columbia City. He was at Parkview Hospital, the address for the hospital, where he worked, his father's name. I don't know why they don't have the mother's name on there. And I can't see it here, but further down on the document it will show, there it is, where he was buried, South Whitley Cemetery. So you can get a lot of information if you view the full document a lot of times, rather than just this brief summary. Okay, the next section I wanted to show you is this map section down here at the bottom. This is a handy dandy little thing if you know the general area that someone lived in, but you're not sure of anything else about them. If I go down here to Indiana, there are several different documents for Indiana that I can look at. I'm going to look for the marriage index. Where is it? And I don't know a particular first name I want to look for, but I will just look up the last name Keel, because I know most of the family were in Indiana. And this gives me several Keel family members. And over here it tells what county they were in. Well, none of these look familiar as to where these people might have been that were in my family. But if one of these happens to look correct to you, like the spouse's name, approximate date of marriage, you can view the record. And we'll give you a little bit more information. And once again, over here on the right, it shows more documents that might relate to that person. So you can investigate that. Let's go back to the map. I go to Pennsylvania. There are death certificates. And I know the Hippensteel family is from Pennsylvania. I see lots of Hippensteels. I happen to know that there's Harry Hippensteel, but it's not the correct Hippensteel. But it could be a relative. So the father is Harry Foreman, and the mother is Minnie Hippensteel. That can't be my Hippensteel family. So I go back. Myrtle Hippensteel, that name sounds familiar. I can go in there. Father Sherman Hippensteel. Yeah, that would be correct. So I can go in and view the record. The beauty of this too is if you see up here, if you have opened a document, almost every single one will have the save button. So you hit the save, and then you can save it to the computer. You can save it to a thumb drive, anything like that. Or if you click on this little gadget here, the tool menu, you have the option of printing, or there also you can download it. If it's hard to see because the colors are wrong, you can invert your colors. You have black background, white text. Sometimes with older documents it's easier to see this because the ink will fade, but if you reverse the colors, it will come through. We'll now go to the right-hand side of the screen. And you'll see these different sections. There's birth, marriage, and death. And under that's different categories. There's census voter lists. You can see that's a little bit of a longer list. And over here is your narrower categories. Well, there's immigration, military, schools and directories and church histories, tax, criminal, land, wills. So if you have a relative you know where's a criminal, that might be where you want to go. Then there's reference dictionaries and almanacs, and stories and publications, photos and maps. We'll start with the birth, marriage, and death records. And to do that, I just click on the bold underlined section at the top. And this looks very similar to what you saw before. So I will begin with Lydia Peter. And I know she was born in 1855. In Ohio. And she died in 1910 in Indiana. And if I had further information I could put in, she was married, when she was married, father, mother, spouse, if she had any children. But I think that's plenty of information to do a broad enough search to get something. And lo and behold, there's her death certificate. Lydia Hay was her married name. As you can see, somebody transcribed it to say that it was Lydia Heater. She was born about 1855, which would be correct, and she died in Wabash County. Also, you'll see that she was married, has a marriage certificate. So there's your information on that. Here's some more information. She had a child, Grace Hay, who got married. And she obviously remarried to James Arnold. There's some more information about her and Daniel. But you'll see it also says marriage and divorce, so sometimes there's divorce documents in here. Over here on the left, you'll see that you have the breakdown of other subcategories, marriage and divorce, or birth and baptism and christenings, or just the death, burial, cemetery, and obituary records. So if we do death, burial, there's your death certificate, death records. But the death on here does not match what I know that her death was. Because I know she died in 1910. And this would be her daughter's death certificate, Grace. But that is the sort of information you can find under the birth, marriage, and death records. Now if we go to the census and voter lists, same search information you've been seeing me put in. We go to George, mom, and he was born in 1875. And I know he lived in Whitley County, Indiana. And it's nice enough to pop up sometimes with the correct information. And we have George F. Long, Columbia City, Jefferson Township, Columbia Township. I know those are all places that my George Long lived. So if I go to the 1900 census, I now find out that his father's name was Philip. And he's the only one listed as living in the household at that time. The problem being is I know that there's more than one Philip Long that was in Whitley County at that time. But I do know from the information here on the right that it is the correct George Long. The 1930 census is a little bit older. And this brief history too will break down things so that it's easier to read and tells you what he did for a living. And you find out that his wife was Mabel. And this Dorsey and Alice and all these other children here, it says they were boarders. But actually Alice was his daughter. Dorsey was his son-in-law. So these were all his grandchildren. And if you go into view the documents, and at the bottom of the page, you can see the whole household. There's George, Mabel, Dorsey, Alice, Ruth. All are dead now, so we don't have any problems showing you them. We'll do another search. This time we're going to look for Dorsey, his son-in-law. 1895. And his father was Edward. And now you see Dorsey White living in Columbia City. With census records, you also need to be careful because you get down here to Darcy White, but you see somebody has corrected it to say Dorsey White. So sometimes you'll see misspellings. You can't be too picky sometimes on the spelling. You have to actually investigate the documents. I know Dorsey died in 1939? No, 1930. So that he should not appear in anything beyond 1930. So that gives you an idea. It's still showing him as being a boarder. His father and mother were both born in Indiana. He was 25 the first time he got married. He was able to read and write. Sometimes you're surprised how many of them they say no. And once again, over here on the right are other documents that might pertain to Dorsey. Next category are immigration and travel records. Same search information. Frederick was born in 1867, and I know he lived in Cook County. Illinois, and he arrived in the United States about 1910. So I will tell it within 2 years, either way, of 1910. And the fun thing with the immigration and travel records is a lot of times the name spellings are really off. Like here, Frederick is spelled differently. This one is spelled, but it doesn't have the middle name there. This one has Christian, which I put in his full name is Frederick Christian. But this one appears to be the correct one because 1910, he departed from Hamburg. He was born in Germany. So I look at this record. And this gives some interesting information, the fact that it gives his height, where he's heading to, who got him on the boat, who he's going to in the United States, and what the relationship was with this person. If I go into the document, You'll see there's lots of cruises listed here. As you go down, you see Margaret, John. I have to blow it up to read all the names, but these are his wife and children, if you look at the ages here. And William was 2. But it also gives a little bit of information that Frederick was a minor. Johann was a minor. And things of that nature. And it tells where they were born, all that information. But sometimes this is the only information you can find on immigrants. But here it also tells where they were last lived in Germany. Yeah, there it is. This particular document also shows that they were sailing on the ship, the Pennsylvania. So a lot of times it's interesting to go online and just Google and find the ship name, and it'll show you pictures of what the ship would have looked like. Here is also a naturalization record, but it has the ship they came on as, I can't pronounce that one, but I know that couldn't be correct. That one can't be correct because it's the wrong ship and wrong arrival date. And that's Mrs. F. Kerr, so that wouldn't be him. But if you find a naturalization record, we'll try this one here. These are interesting in the fact that it will show when they arrived, the ship they arrived on, and when they were naturalized. And with these records, sometimes they're written in another language, but then there's translations. You can find out a lot of times their parentage, who their father and mother was, where they originally came from, where they were born. Okay. Back to searching. Military. There's lots of information here. We will try Jacob Schoff. He was born 1843. And he died 1913. And I know that he was in the military from Indiana. And here we got several different things. Fort Wayne, that sounds about right. Or Pierceton, Montgomery County, Indiana. But I know definitely he was a Civil War soldier. If I go into this, it tells me that he served in Company B of the 44th Regiment. And that is correct. So I have the right person. So I can print this information out and it gives me somewhere to search for his military records. It also tells his enlistment date and when he was discharged. So he served for 4 years. However, I do know that he served twice, so there should be another enlistment in here somewhere. And there's more information that he lived in Pierceton. And when he died, so this record was put in after his death. Here's the Civil War soldiers, prisoner of war listed. This has him in Company E of the 150th Regiment. And this would be a good place too if you are not sure about the regiments and the military. Sometimes soldiers were transferred from one regiment to the other, especially in the Civil War. So if you go and Google the regiment and the state or territory they were from, you'll see how the military moved the soldiers around. And this might still be the same Jacob Schaff, he just was in a different company at the time. Try one more. I'll go for somebody a little bit older. I'll go for Sebastian. Peter. He was born in 1760, and he died in 1846. This puts him in the Revolutionary War era. Oh, I forgot to delete this. So it's a good thing that that's not definite. But I will go back and edit that little pencil at the top. Because I know my Sebastian here was from Pennsylvania. There he is, Bedford County, Pennsylvania. So there's his veteran card file. He was enlisted from 1775 to 1783. And there's his file numbers. And this tells you his certificate number, so if you're actually going to the National Archives and looking for his information, you'll want to have his certificate number. It also gives you a little bit of more information that he's in the register for Volume 8, page 141. And if you look here, here's one that, even though we put in heater, it's spelled similarly enough that you got more information. Okay, there's all the heaters that I'm going to look under soldier, veteran, and prisoner roles on this. There's the one I showed you earlier with the veteran cards. Sometimes you can go too far into record searches and not come up with the one you want just because you went too far. Like I said at the beginning, the broader you are, sometimes the better off you are. Do one more search under military. And I'm pretty sure on this one that we will not come up with anything for Paul Simmons, just because there is a year, and it varies depending on what kind of records there are that the U.S. government will allow access to. But Paul was born in 1915, and he died in 1989. Well, we have one document there. Is death information from the death files. But this does tell you that his social security number, what branch he was enlisted in, and when he was enlisted and discharged. So it gives you a place to start in your search. The next section I want to look at is the school directories and church histories. Here you can get a little bit more modern, just because school yearbooks didn't start until after the 1900s generally. And I will look up Harry Keel. He was born in 1874. So he would have been in school after 1900. And you'll see city directories. Well, I know he didn't live in Kansas, so that can't be my Harry. So it looks like I need to narrow it down because I'm seeing Pennsylvania and I'm seeing Kansas. So if I come back here to the edit, which is the little pencil, I can say they lived in Indiana. Okay, now we're cooking. We've got Wabash County, Indiana. Anderson, Indiana. So more than likely it would be this first one because I know he lived in Wabash County. And he was there in 1912. And this gives you his street address. So if you wanted to go find his house, that's where you would look. If we look at the actual document, you'll see here's a Chauncey Keel, I happen to know is a brother. There's Harry. And over here on this side, there are Heaters. And since I know the family history, I know that these people were also related to him. And families tended to group closely in where they lived, so this would be somewhere else to start looking for information. Let's do one more search under schools. And here's a little bit more modern person. Gary Jester. He was born in 1953. I know he lived in Huntington County. And there's my Gary Jester. He didn't change much over the years. But in 1969, he was in Huntington County, Indiana. And there he is in 1960. He was a cute little bugger when he was little. There he is in 1962. And there he was his senior year. Once again, you have the option to save from here. You can save it to your computer. Use the little tool menu. You can download from there or print. But there's lots of options as to what to do with your documents while you're in here. If you just want to view it, print it, save it. Okay, the next section is the tax, criminal, land, and wills. I usually don't find a whole lot under tax and criminal just because I'm not looking for that information usually. I'm usually looking for land records and wills. Let's try George Long's father, Philip Alford Long. And I know he was born in 1835. He died in 1916. And he lived in Indiana. Lo and behold, there's a will. Down here's another will, and it might be the same one. This one is just one of the pages. This one has more documentation. This gives his children. And I see from this, all his children listed. And I know that these are his children. So this is the correct person. But wills can be very interesting documents. Sometimes you find out about family feuds. Sometimes you find out about slave ownership that you did not know about. Sometimes you find out about slaves who were children of the slave owners. But this gives you over here on the right, it tells you what will book it is in, where it's at, what county. So if you go to the courthouse, you can actually get a copy of the will. And sometimes on these, the wills are more than one page. This one, item 7. I find wills very interesting, especially when you find family feuds that you did not know about. One of my great-grandfathers disowned all of his children and left everything to his second wife. Let's look him up. Isaac Simmons. Oh, come on. Here's 1847. And he died in 1913. I know the Freedman Bank records does not belong to him because he was not black and he did not live in South Carolina. However, here's his will, because I know he died in Huntington County. And as you can see, the only family member who is listed is his second wife, Mary. But once again, it gives the will book, volume GH, 1909 to 1920, in Huntington, Indiana. And I can tell you right now that these particular will books are located at the Huntington County Public Library. So sometimes they're kept at the courthouses, sometimes they're kept at museums, sometimes they're kept at libraries. Okay, the last two areas I want to show you, under here, under search, you see this card catalog. This is similar to the old card catalogs libraries used to have. Only if you look here, you'll see at the top, the default is date added, so you'll see mostly the newest databases that have been put in. And the fun thing with the databases is that the census records happen every 10 years. However, in here, you put in keyword, voter, registration. You see lots of voter registrations. Voter registrations are continual. So even if you can't find somebody on the census record, you might find them on a voter registration record, if you know basically where they lived. But there's other, you could look under land registrations. Lots of options here. You just have to explore it. The last thing I wanted to show you is trees. Unfortunately, it's showing my personal family trees under all collections. Down here at the bottom, you see all these check marks. If you take everything off except for family trees, look up Ruth White. And I know that's the right Ruth White. She died when I was only a few years old. And you'll see some family trees that she appears in. The main thing you have to remember with family trees on Ancestry, you may not edit someone else's family tree. However, it is a place to start. Here's Ruth Bethlehem White, and I know who this family tree member is, so I know this is correct. But I can see all the information this person has on Ruth White. Has her birth, has her sisters, fathers, brother, where she lived, when she got married again, when she died, where she's buried. Even her husband that they annulled the marriage has his information in there. Now, anytime you're looking at a family tree, you have to take it with a grain of salt. It's always verify, verify, verify. You have to look at the documentation. Okay, we got information from census record. Look at it yourself. Here's another census record. Look at it yourself. Birth certificate. Same thing. Death certificate. Marriage certificates. Also on family trees, Ancestry guards privacy. If they're still alive, you will not be able to see their information. All it will tell you about is the dead people. However, I do happen to know that they're missing some people here, because I know this person here is dead and they're not listed yet, so he must not have updated. You can also see pictures if they have any. And once again, I'm in this picture right there. If I wanted to save the tree, if I wanted to print the picture, you have that option. You can zoom in, zoom out. But remember, always verify your information with documentation. If you go to the personal family tree account, go to tree. This is my family tree, or at least part of it. Or I have several family trees, so if I click on trees, I can pick which family tree I want to work on. Now I'm going to leave the rest of the information as work on it yourself and verify, verify, verify.